Hey everybody, I am going to be working on page 160. This is actually a redo of a video I made before that got lost. So that's why it's already pre-filled in, but I am going to read the passage to you and briefly explain how you can answer these questions. Okay, so we'll start with the continuation of the Hunger Games. It is both a time for repentance and a time for thanks, intones the mayor. Then he reads the list of past District 12 victors. In 74 years, we have had exactly two. Only one is still alive, Hamish Abernathy, a paunchy middle-aged man who at this moment appears hollering something unintelligible, staggers on to the stage, and falls into the third chair. The mayor looks distressed. Since all of this is being televised, right now, District 12 is the laughing stock of Pan Am, and he knows it. He quickly tries to pull the attention back to the reaping by introducing Effie Trinket. Bright and bubbly as ever, Effie Trinket trots to the podium and gives her signature, "Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor." "It is time for the drawing," Effie Trinket says, as she always does, "ladies first," and crosses to the glass ball with the girls' names. She reaches in, digs her hand deep into the ball, and pulls out a slip of paper. The crowd draws in a collective breath, and then you can hear a pin drop. And I'm feeling nauseous and desperately hoping that it's not me, that it's not me, that it's not me. Effie Trinket crosses back to the podium, smooths the slip of paper, and reads out the name in a clear voice. And it's not me. It's Primrose Everdeen. "Prim!" The strangled cry comes out of my throat, and my muscles begin to move again. "Prim!" I don't need to shove through the crowd. The other kids make way immediately, allowing me a straight path to the stage. I reach her just as she is about to mount the steps. With one sweep of my arm, I push her behind me. "I volunteer," I guess. I volunteer as tribute." Prim is screaming hysterically behind me. She's wrapped her skinny arms around me like a vice. "No, Katniss, no! You can't go!" "Prim, let go," I say harshly because this is upsetting me and I don't want to cry. "Let go." "Well, bravo," gushes Effie Trinket. "That's the spirit of the games. What's your name?" I swallow hard. "Katniss Everdeen," I say. So I already pre-filled in the vocabulary. You don't have to write my example. I'd actually prefer it if you wrote your own example. But distressed means very concerned or upset. And it asks you a question with the vocabulary word, and it says, what issue are you most distressed about? So they want us to use our vocabulary word again. I am most distressed about, and of course, because of what's going on right now in the world, I went ahead and filled mine out with the coronavirus pandemic. You do not have to use the same example as me. And again, I'd prefer it if you used your own. And then on the bottom, we have the word allow, which means to make it possible for someone to do something. And then it asks us a question with the vocabulary again. If you ran your school, what would you allow students to do as a reward for hard work? Then we are going to use our vocabulary word in the sentence. I would allow students to, and I actually filled mine in with skip unit tests days if they have an A average. And the reason I did that was because when I was in high school, if you had an A average in the class, you did not have to take your unit tests. And it was a really good thing to not have to come in all day on testing days. So I think that is a great reward, and I think that they should bring it back. Of course, I'm not in charge, so that's not really happening. All right. So then we have this section right here, and I'm going to leave you to answer that on your own, but I'm going to briefly explain what it is that I expect from you on this side. So we always start with the key idea, and the key idea is what the passage or the paragraph or a particular section is mostly about. So this is an excerpt from the Hunger Games, which is basically a small piece of the actual story. Okay, and here they're asking us what major events happen in this part of the story. They're not asking you about the previous 2 pages, and they're not asking you about the whole book. They're only asking you about pages 160 and 161. So you're going to fill in what this was mostly about. In this part of the story, and I'll give you a hint, it's about what Katniss did. And so then we're going to move on. And then we have text structure, which text structure is how the author chooses to set up the story. It could be a problem and a solution, a cause and effect. It could be something that's in chronological or time order. So they're asking you, how did the author set this up? In paragraph 14, Katniss says, I volunteer. I volunteer as tribute. How does this change the course of events? So I think sometimes in the story, something happens that makes it a complete turnaround. And sometimes at the beginning of the story, we have what I like to call an inciting incident, which the inciting incident is something that if this had not happened, it would have changed the course of the entire story. So I'd like to think that these last 2 pages of what Katniss did was the inciting incident. So I ask, when Katniss volunteers as tribute, what happened? And go ahead and finish it and answer on your own. And then the stretch portion asks us, how does the author use dialogue for dramatic effect? So dialogue, dialogue is when characters are speaking to each other in the text. And we know this because it's in quotations. On top of that, I look at some of the words that they have here in quotations, and they have exclamation points, which means somebody's excited or upset or getting really loud sometimes. And so what's happening here in the story kind of help make it dramatic. Had the author not put stuff in quotations, had they not put exclamation points, it would make it harder to understand the story. But they did put those quotations and those exclamation points. So they did that for dramatic effect. Why did he do that? So the author uses dialogue to show what, basically. So that's page 160 and 161. Of course, you can always call, text, or email me if you have any questions about the directions. I hope this helps.